Okay, students and parents, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the entire fencing project from beginning to end to hopefully answer any questions you might have and just to show you how to do this project, following along with my example. Now, before you start, there's two things you should have already finished before doing this project. One would be your the measurement assignment, which is your backyard blueprint rough sketch, okay, where you go to your backyard, you measure to the nearest foot how far it would be, and there was an example with it. So you should have that done already. The next thing you should have is your supply sheet. This has all the supplies you would need for the actual fencing project, which you can see, post hole digger, and then a measuring tape and a post leveler. So those are the two things you need prior to actually doing the project. You need your measurements and you need how much all the supplies would cost, okay? If I look at the actual project, okay, there's some requirements, there's some directions in it, and there's also an example in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the example and I'm going to do it right on the board for you, okay? Now, when you're doing this project, there's a couple sheets that are really important to have. One would be the fence supply data sheet, and the reason why you have this is it helps you with your calculations for how many posts and how many pieces of fence you would need, okay? Next would be, I have a blueprint calculation sheet to help you, do your actual work, and you can see my example in there also. The backyard blueprint is what you would do, once you do all your calculations, this is what you'd put your final product on, when you would actually draw your backyard with the fence on it, and with all the posts and all the actual pieces of fence. And finally, you have your final calculation sheet. This shows you how much, everything would cost, and what you're doing is you're finding out how many you would need, the quantity to find out the supplies, okay? And we'll get to that towards the end. Now, if you look at your example, okay, the example of my backyard that I did was a 50-foot by 32 feet on both sides, okay? So I'm going to actually draw that on the board, okay, and then we're going to go from there. So here it is. Here's my backyard. It's a 50-foot by 32 feet. And I'm actually going to come back to this later to draw in my post and my fence, because this is what your final blueprint would pretty much look like, okay? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate how many pieces of fence and how many posts I would need for my first side, which was a 50-foot, okay? So we're talking about a 50-foot section. Now, for a 50-foot section, what you want to do is you want to look at your fence supply data sheet, okay? Because this actually tells you how many feet and inches it would be for each piece of fence. So, for example, what I have here is, if you look, it says 1 times 7 because one piece of fence would be 7 feet, 2 times 7 because two pieces of fence would be 14 feet. They're all multiples of 7, okay? If I look, I have a 7 by 7, which gets me a 49. And you'd think, oh, 49 would be a good one to use. However, the post in between the fences, because what you do is you put a post up, and then you put a piece of fence, and then you put a post up, and then you put a piece of fence, and then you put another post up. That's how you'd have those all stand up. The problem is that all of these are actually 4 inches, okay? So you always have to factor in the 4 inches in between each piece of fence. So if I had 7, okay, 7 pieces times 7 feet, that would give me 49 feet. The problem is that to hold up these 7 pieces, I actually need 8 posts. So that would be 8 posts times 4 inches a piece, right? That would be 32 inches, so you're going to go way over 50, all right? So we're actually not going to use 7, we'd actually use 6, okay? So using our sheet here, I can see that 6 pieces are actually going to get me 42 feet. So what you want to do is you actually want to draw the 6 panels. I'm going to show you. It looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that my 6 panels, right, times 7 feet is going to get me 42 feet. Okay? So my next step is going to be to draw in my posts. Okay? Now, I have 1 post here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, what I have to find out is how far it is from this edge of this post all the way to this post. Because remember, it's not just 42 feet, I have to factor in my posts, okay? Now, to do that, again, I have my fence supply data sheet, and I look at my fence post, and they are 4 inches across. So that means if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these, it's going to be 7, which I look on here, it's going to get me 2 feet, 4 inches. So the math here is done for you, so you can use this. 7 posts times my 4 inches is going to equal 2 feet, 4 inches. Again, I got that number from my data sheet, okay? Now my next step is going to be to total up my 4 feet, 2 feet, 4 inches with my 42 feet to see again how far this measurement is. So I take 42 feet and I'm adding 2 feet, 4 inches. Okay? When I add these together, there's no inches here, so that would get me 4 inches and 44 feet, 4 inches. Now my next step is going to be how far, because if you look, 44 feet isn't enough. I want to get to 50 feet. But that last piece of fence is not going to be exactly 7 feet, because if I added 7 feet to 44 feet, I'd have too much. I'd be 51 feet plus. So what I have to do is I'd actually have to cut that piece of fence. Okay? So that's what we're going to find out. How long is that last piece, which is going to be right on the edge right here. Okay? So what I do is I take my original 50 feet up here. So I'm taking 50 feet, and now I have to subtract my 44 feet and 4 inches. So minus 44 feet and 4 inches. Okay? Now, we talked about this in our lesson about subtracting feet and inches. I have 4 inches under here, right? I have a 0 here. My bottom number is bigger. I have to borrow. I borrow from the 50 and I make it 49. When I bring over a foot, remember it's actually 12 inches. I have to add 12 inches plus my 0 inches here, which would get me 12 inches. And now I'm subtracting that from 4 inches. So my answer would be 8 inches here. 49 minus 4 would be 5 feet, 8 inches. Okay? Okay, so there's one more step. If you take a look, what I have left here is 5 feet, 8 inches. Okay, but the problem is if I put a piece of fence right here that's 5 feet, 8 inches, and then a post there, that's going to be an extra 4 inches onto this. Okay? So what you have to do is, the last step, once you find this, is you have to actually subtract the last post, which would be a 4-inch post. So you'd actually minus 4 inches. Okay? And if you subtract this, you would get 5 feet, I got to squeeze it in here, and 4 inches. Okay? So you would have one last post here, should be your 8th post, and then this post right here would be a 5 foot, 4 inch. Okay? And that's important when we're doing our supplies. We need to find out exactly how many posts and how many pieces of fence that we'd need. Okay, so now I'm going to look at my next side. And my next side was a 32 foot. And for my backyard, it's shaped something like this. And this might be pretty similar to what your backyard looks like. Okay? And if that's the case, you have to do, we just did this measurement right here. Okay? If I do another measurement here, this is going to be the same measurement as this side. Some people might have a backyard that might look a little different, right? You might have something that has like this, and then this, and then this, and then this. In that case, you'd have to do a measurement for 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. In your packet, you'll see there's actually multiple pages in there if you need 4 or 5 or 6, depending on what the shape of your backyard is. Okay? So for my second side, actually my second and third side, it's going to be 32 feet is what the length is going to be. All right? Now, again, the first step is going to be, I'm going to use my fence supply data sheet. I'm going to say, okay, I need 32 feet, but I need something less than 32 feet because I don't want to have to go too far when I think about my posts. All right? So 32 feet, let me see. I'm going to do 4 because 4 times 7 would be 28. So that means I'm going to do 4 times 7 feet equals 28 feet. And that means that I'm going to draw out 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of fence. Now, this is the tricky part, and you'll see it on my example. You're not going to count a post right here. And the reason why is if you think about it, we did our 50 feet this way, right? And we put all of our posts in here. And then what happens, I put my final post here, and my 32 that's starting on this side, I'm not going to put a post and then a post, right? I would just put my fence right on there. So what I do is this. When I draw out this, just to remind myself, I do a star. I'm not going to count the star as an actual post, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out my post. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 posts to hold up these pieces of fence. Now if I have 4 posts, remember it's going to be 4 posts times 4 inches. My math is done for me on this. If I look on here, I know, oh, okay, 4 posts, it gets me 1 foot 4 inches. Okay. Now what I have to do is I have to find my measurement from this post to this post, or I'm sorry, actually from this piece of fence to this post, adding my 28 feet plus my 1 foot 4 inches. So I take 28 feet plus 1 foot 4 inches. When I add those together, I get 29 feet 4 inches. But that's not enough, right? Because I need to get all the way to 32 feet. So I got to put another piece of fence here, and I need to find out how far that fence is going to be. It's not going to be 7-foot piece, because 7 foot added to this would get me into 36 feet, and we need to get to 32 feet. So I'm going to subtract this number, remember, from 32. So I take my 32 feet, and I'm going to subtract my 29 feet 4 inches. Remember that there'll be a 0 here, so my bottom number is bigger. I'm going to borrow. This is going to become 31 feet. I'm bringing over a foot, which would equal 12 inches. 12 inches plus my 0 inches. It's going to get me 12 inches. I'm going to subtract here now. 12 minus 4 gets me 8 inches. And then 31 minus 29 would get me 2 feet. Okay, so remember there's one last step. The final step would be we have our 2 feet, 8 inch what we would have here, but again, if we put another post here, we don't want it to go 4 inches too long. So we'd actually have to subtract 4 inches. Okay? So 2 feet 4 inches would get me, 2 feet 8 inches, and you minus 4 inches would get me a final total of here. This piece would be 2 feet and 4 inches. So technically I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 posts, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of fence. Okay? Now, again, my yard looks like this. I did my 50 feet already, and these two were both 32. For the project, it's a good idea to write this out again, just to show how you got your calculations again. But for these purposes, I'm going to show you that I'm not going to have to do these calculations again because the other side is the exact same side. Okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these numbers now and I'm going to draw it on my original picture that I drew. Okay? So if I go back, this is what I need to do now. I need to go in and draw my actual fence and fence post. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 posts on my 50-foot side. So I'm going to do that first. Do the post first. It's your best way of doing it. If you do this too, if you start here and you do number 1, and this would be 2, right? Then I can go in between just to make it nice and neat. So that's 3. I'd have to do 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are my posts, and then I'm drawing my fence in between. Remember I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 7 side, 1. Yep, 7 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is my one side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the other ones. Now again, when I drew this, I kind of didn't go very far. This one actually is a little bit better. Because remember, my next piece of fence is going to go right here. Right? My next piece of fence is going to go right here. I'm not going to put another post there. That doesn't make any sense. But let's take a look now at our 32 feet. Our 32 feet, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 posts. So let's go back and do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to put in my fence. I can actually just fill these in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, I had the original one up here. So now what I did was I did my calculations, right? I then drew my blueprint. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to have to get your supplies, the quantity you need of everything. Now, the quantity sheet Now, when you're doing your filing and calculation sheet, what you're trying to do is find out how much you need of certain supplies. You can see on here that some things you only need one of each, while other ones you actually need more than one, like fence posts. Or another example would be vinyl fencing, the actual fencing part. Or there's actually a cover that goes on top of those posts, all right? Or the post cap, so it goes right on top of it. Or the bracket kits. The bracket kits are actually in between there. So that we're going to do that. I'm going to show you posts. We're going to do a number, vinyl fencing, and then we're going to also do bracket kits. Okay. Let's start with the posts. The posts, you can just number them. So I need 1, 2. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I need 18 posts. We'll just keep that in the color that it's written up there. Okay? Fencing. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 pieces of fence. Okay? Next would be our bracket kit. Now the bracket kit is what holds this piece of fence up to the post. And you need one kit for everything. It actually says it on here. It says one kit for each spot where the fence meets a post. So that means you'd need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 of these. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the supply sheet, and I'm just going to go through on how to find those answers. Okay, if you take a look at this final calculation sheet, we can see is we have all of our supplies here. And you can see that I have quantity. I filled in the ones here because you only need one saw and you only need one mixing tub and a margin trowel and like a power drill. You'd write in your prices here based upon your supply sheet that you finished, and then your quantity is what you would look to see how many you'd need. So you look at your blueprint and you see how much fast setting concrete you'd need, and you need one bag per post. So how many posts you need, you'd put that there. How many posts you put up. That number would be the same here because here's your post. That also the same number would be here, which is your post cover, okay, and also your post cap. So you can see it says same as post. The vinyl fence bracket kit, I showed you again. It's one kit for each spot where the fence meets the post. So you put all your quantities in here. You take your price and times them to your quantity, and that would be your total cost for this. When you come down to here, you'd add everything up to your subtotal. Once you add up your subtotal, you take that number and you times it by 0.07. I live in New Jersey, so that's our sales tax. And then to get our final total, you would add your subtotal plus your tax together, and that would get your total. All right, so the last thing we're going to look at is going to be the actual poster example, how to take all this information that you have, all of your sheets, and then how to put it on a poster. So I'm going to show you up close what it looks like, how to actually make it. Okay, so you can see this is what the poster would look like. We have our title at the top, some visual aids. I have some stuff here with like fences and people building fences. Your backyard blueprint would be right here. You're going to put all your final calculation sheets here, and what you're going to do is you're going to put your blueprint calculation sheets on the bottom, and then your final calculation sheet on top, and then your name on it. All right, and that's it. And that's it. That's the fencing project. If you have any questions, you can go, again, back to the teacherresource.com, and under the comment section, you can leave a question, with where this project was at on that page, and I'll try to get you, try to answer your question as best I can. All right? Good luck with the project.